Good afternoon and welcome to the live. It is day 15 of the Diddy trial. Look, if any of you were on earlier, I had some type of technical glitch and lost the prior recording of the earlier part of this live. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start over because this is the benefit of kind of coming in late after the trial has started. We don't have to pause so much for breaks and sidebars and so on. So, currently in real time, the jury is not back in the courtroom yet from lunch. So, we're just going to quickly get caught up on the testimony that has taken place this morning, and we'll catch back up to where they are in real time, even before they're close to leaving for the end of the day. So, let's just jump back into it. All right. So on the stand this morning, we have Eddie Garcia. Eddie Garcia was part of security at the Intercontinental Hotel. This is the now infamous hotel that is in the video. Is where Diddy and Cassie were when he committed the domestic violence against her. The video we all have seen that took place at the Intercontinental Hotel, and Eddie Garcia was a part of the security team there. So the prosecutor calls Eddie Garcia to the stand. They ask him, "Where did you work on the day in question?" He said, "The Intercontinental Hotel. I was told there was an incident involving Sean Combs. Do you see him here?" So then still is stipulating something for the defense. Prosecutor, let me show you your sign-in sheet for that day. Garcia said, "Yes, I signed that weekend in March 10th, 2016. Prosecutor, could you monitor all the cameras? Garcia said, "Not all, but more than one at a time." Prosecutor, would you be required to check the monitors? Garcia said, "Yes." Did you initially recognize the individual involved in this incident? Garcia said, "Not at first, but when I looked closer, it was Mr. Sean Combs." Prosecutor, and did you learn who the second individual was? Garcia said, "Yes, it was Miss Cassie Ventura." Prosecutor, why was law enforcement not called? Miss Ventura did not request it. So interesting thing here is, and I doubt if the defense, I don't know if the defense will ask this in cross or not, but he said he didn't call the police because Cassie did not request it. I wonder what was his obligation as a part of security. What was his obligation after a certain incident, after seeing an incident like that? And legally, what was his obligation? I'm assuming there had to be some obligation because let's all keep in mind, Cassie got a settlement from the hotel for $10 million. So I'm assuming there was something more that needed to be done here. Okay. Excuse me. He said, "Did you review the incident report?" Garcia said, "Yes, there was an attachment that I did not open on the computer, a video file." Prosecutor, "Did you receive a call?" Garcia said, "Yes." "From who?" "Christina Coram with New York area code. She asked if I had the video." Christina Coram is Diddy's ex-chief of staff. She also goes by KK, and I often refer to her as Epstein's assistant. You know, that woman who's sitting in prison right now for aiding and assisting Epstein with his stuff. Her. That's who she was to Diddy. Okay, so prosecutor said, "What did she ask for?" Garcia said, "The video." She said Mr. Combs had been intoxicated and didn't remember exactly. Defense attorney objects, the judge sustains, and the prosecutor asks for a sidebar. And then we're back here. Prosecutor said, "What did you tell Miss Coram?" Garcia said that she would have to talk to management. "Did she reach out again?" Garcia said, "Yes, I got a call from the lobby that she was there looking for me." Prosecutor, "What did she ask for?" Garcia said, "The video." "How did you respond?" Garcia said that she had to talk to management or file a subpoena. Prosecutor, "Did you tell her what you saw in the video?" "Yes, I told her. Off the record, it's bad." "Did you get another call?" Garcia said, "Yes, from a New York area code." Garcia said it was Miss Coram. She put someone else on the phone. Prosecutor asked, "Who?" Garcia said, "Mr. Combs." He asked, "Do you know who I am?" Do you know who I am? Okay, that's maybe, it is ominous though, isn't it? Prosecutor said, "What did you say?" He said, "I said yes." He asked for the video, said he had been intoxicated. I told him I can't give the video. Prosecutor, how did he sound? Garcia said he was talking fast and stuttering. He sounded nervous. Did you email management? Garcia said yes. So they show Garcia an exhibit and ask him, "What is it?" Garcia said, "It's the email I sent." Brian still objects. The judge overrules. The email, as shown, has Corum's phone number on it, not redacted. It says Combs, aka P. Diddy, says he is a patron and wants to talk to you. So at this point, all hands on deck over there at Combs Industries, well, with KK and his chief of staff trying to get to this man, Eddie Garcia, to try to get this videotape. Prosecutor, did you get more calls from Miss Corum? He said, yes, on my personal number. How did you react? He said, nervous. Miss Corum passed the phone to Mr. Combs again, Garcia said. What did he say? Garcia said that I sounded like a good guy, that he could help, that something like this could ruin him. He wanted the video. He said if it got out, it would ruin his career. And Diddy, you ain't never lied, and this is going to ruin more than your career. How about if it got out, it could ruin lives? You know those children you got? How about that? Okay, so anyway, Garcia said I didn't have access to the server. He told me he believed I could make it happen. He would take care of me. Prosecutor said, what did you think he meant? Garcia said, money for the video. What did you do? I reached out to my supervisor about it. Prosecutor, who was your supervisor? Bill Madrano. He told me he would do it for 50. Prosecutor, what did you think that meant? He'd give the video for $50,000. What did you do? Called Christina, who put Mr. Combs on. He called me Eddie, my angel. And now we'll flip the let me just cross you guys over to the CNN side, because for some reason the thread at this point on the X feed got interrupted. Several people are logged a comment about that, so I'm not really sure what happened with the thread for inner city press. It somehow got out of order, but that's okay, because we are going to flip right on over to where the CNN picks up at that point with the $50,000. Okay, so just 1 second as I get there with you all, and it should be popping up on your screen right about now. Okay, so let's go through this testimony. Eddie Garcia testified that he called his boss to tell him Diddy was willing to pay to obtain the hotel security video that showed the rapper assaulting Cassie Ventura. After a pause on the phone, Garcia's boss said he would do it for 50. Garcia testified. Garcia called Christina Corum, Combs' chief of staff, back. She gave the phone to Combs, Garcia testified. When Garcia said he could get him the video for $50,000, Combs said, quote, Eddie, my angel, I knew you could help me. I knew you could do it. The next day, Garcia's boss went to the servers and downloaded the video onto a thumb drive that he gave to Garcia for Combs. Garcia said he contacted Corum and told her he had the USB with the video on it, and then she passed the phone to Combs. Quote, he was happy, sounded excited, and said how fast I could get it to him. He said Combs gave him an address. It seemed like he wanted to have the video as soon as possible. He said Combs again referred to him as, quote, Eddie, my angel. Garcia's boss then told Garcia to go to the address and tell the other officers that he was running an errand for him. Eddie Garcia called Christina Corum when he arrived in the lobby of the high-rise building where Combs had told him to meet. A man who identified himself as Combs' security guard brought Garcia up to a room on a higher floor. Combs was happy when he got there, Garcia said. Quote, he was smiling, excited, just looked happy. Combs referred to him as Eddie, my angel. Combs welcomed Garcia. He said, I believe you know he was making me feel comfortable. Combs welcomed Garcia. He said, I believe you know he was making me feel comfortable. Okay. Garcia testified, quote, "At the time, I was very nervous and my voice kept cracking." Garcia said Combs offered him a tea when he said he was coming down with something. Combs asked him if he liked tea, and when Garcia said he didn't know, Combs directed Coram to go get him that tea I like. If Garcia, if he knew then what we know now, I don't know if he drank the tea or not, but don't take drinks from Diddy. Okay, just don't. Okay, because he into things. All right, so Eddie Garcia said he handed Combs the USB after he asked for the hotel security video that showed Combs assaulting Cassie Ventura. Garcia added that Combs then left the room for a few minutes without explaining why. When Combs returned, he asked if that was the only copy of the video. Garcia said he told Combs he believed so. Quote, he said it had to be the only copy and that he did not want it getting out. And if I was sure nothing was on the cloud. Garcia said he then contacted his boss, who confirmed it was the only copy. Now, we all know, because we're here now, that was not the case. Okay, so Garcia said again that he then contacted his boss, who confirmed it was the only copy and he had removed it from the server. Garcia told Combs that and then said he was concerned that if Ventura filed a police report about the incident later, that it could affect him. Quote, he said, "I don't have to worry about that she knew about it and she wanted the video gone too." Okay. The former hotel security guard said that after he gave Diddy the USB with the hotel footage on it, Combs got who he said was Cassie Ventura on a FaceTime call. Garcia said it looked like her, but she was wearing a hoodie and the lighting was bad. As Combs passed the phone to Garcia, the rapper directed Ventura. Garcia testified. The rapper directed Ventura. Okay, that sentence isn't written right, but let's continue. Quote, "Let him know that you want this to go away too," Combs told Ventura, according to Garcia. Ventura told Garcia on the video call, quote, that she had a movie coming out and it wasn't a good time for this to come out and she wanted this to go away. Her demeanor was normal on the short video call, Garcia recalled. Combs also asked for identification for Garcia's boss, and the security officer who responded to the incident, Israel Flores. All right. Combs said, quote, "This only works if we're all on the same page." So in other words, Combs is saying, this only works if we're all on the same page, and I also have y'all identities so that I can, make your life difficult if you screw me over. That's how I'm interpreting it. Okay. Garcia told Combs he was nervous because he knew Flores and he said Flores would not go for it. No, quote, "Knowing Mr. Flores, he's a very by the book guy. That's just not something he would do," Garcia testified. Garcia said he then told his boss that Combs wanted his and Flores's IDs and added that he didn't think Flores would be on board. His boss said another officer who was on duty that day would do it. Garcia said he texted pictures of the IDs to Combs. So it's important to know here that Flores is a security guard or was a security guard at the hotel when all of this went down. I think he now works for the LAPD. He testified earlier in this trial. He is the person who is also on the footage of Diddy in the Cassie incident at the hotel where he comes up and, I guess tries to get things under control. He testified that Diddy offered him anything or money at that point to kind of make things go away, and he declined. He didn't take anything like that. So it's good to see here that Garcia is saying he didn't go to Flores and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we need you to do. Send a picture of your ID so we can lock down this money," because he felt Flores was by the book and wouldn't do it. So what his boss told him to do, well, don't worry about getting with Flores. Get with this other dude who was also working that day and send his picture, and that'll be fine. And that's what Eddie Garcia did. So that's good for Flores because he did not perjure himself on the stand. He was not a part of receiving any money. And I do believe he currently works for the LAPD. So that all worked out for him. Okay, so Sean Diddy Combs then had Eddie Garcia, a former security officer, sign paperwork including a declaration that it was the only existing copy of the video. And again, we all know now that was not true. It signed a paperwork including a declaration that it was the only existing copy of the video in a non-disclosure agreement. The jury viewed photos of the documents, which were signed and dated March 7th. The NDA was printed on Combs's company's letterhead and referenced the company in its New York office address. That might mean something down the road if they ever get around to showing us how all of these crimes connected to a criminal enterprise. All right. So Eddie Garcia testified he did not read the documents carefully before signing and he did not receive any copies. Quote, I was nervous. I was in a rush to get out of there, he said. One part of the agreement read aloud in court stated, quote, recipient understands that Combs is a highly prominent recording artist, entertainer, and entrepreneur, and his privacy and the confidentiality of the confidential information is of material concern. So, in other words, they're saying, hey, Eddie Garcia, we're giving you this money. You're signing this non disclosure agreement because you understand that if you were to break the confidentiality of this agreement based off of who I am, you could cause me damage. That's what they're having Eddie sign. Another line from the agreement said, accordingly, without limitation of companies and or Combs's rights as they relate to injunctive relief detail but above, recipient agrees to pay company the sum of $1 million as liquidated damages in the event of a breach of this agreement. Garcia testified he was earning about $10.50 an hour as a security guard at the time. And other people who have testified during this trial, when there's a lot of illegal stuff going on, some of them would say they didn't say anything or felt they couldn't say anything because they had a non-disclosure agreement. Somebody needs to talk to these people because non-disclosure agreements do not bind you to not saying anything about illegal things, illegal activities, right? That's not covered. And it's kind of funny that, Diddy has this paperwork that really means nothing. And it is very clear based off of where we are now. It really meant nothing. But to even suggest to somebody who's getting paid $10.50 an hour that, if you tell anybody about me paying you this money to cover up or to give me the videotape of me beating up Cassie, you're gonna have to pay us $1 million because you weren't supposed to tell. See how that does not work? That does not work at all. All right, let's keep going. So Eddie Garcia signed the paperwork, said Combs grabbed the documents and left the room, returning with a brown bag and a money counter. Combs put a total of $100,000 through the money counter in stacks of $10,000 at a time. Garcia testified that he had previously told Combs that his boss would do it for $50,000. So Garcia assumed the other $50,000 Combs counted was for Garcia and who Combs thought was Israel Flores, the responding officer. Garcia testified that the security guard was present while Combs counted the money and recalled that Christina Quorum, Diddy's former chief of staff, was in and out of the room, so she probably saw the money being counted. After Combs finished counting the money, he asked Garcia if he wanted to count it himself. Garcia declined and told Combs he trusted the machine. When Garcia stood up to leave, Combs said he'd walk him out, which Garcia testified made him nervous. Combs walked down to the lobby with Garcia and requested both of their cards. Combs asked Garcia how he was planning to spend the money and suggested Garcia not make any big purchases. Garcia called Bill Madrano, his boss, from the car while watching to see if he wasn't being followed. Garcia called Bill Madrano, his boss, from the car while watching to see that he wasn't being followed. Garcia split the money with Madrano and the other officer on duty at the time of the incident, Henry Elias, not Flores. Now, Garcia naming everybody now. And if this Henry Alias or Elias and this Bill Madrano, if they're not testifying, I'm assuming they are no longer working with the Intercontinental, because if they were, they would not be after this testimony. But I'm assuming they're not because, yeah, I mean, this hotel has already paid Cassie 10 million, so they're probably not. But I also feel that if they don't have any kind of immunity agreement or any kind of agreement with the prosecutors, I wonder if the prosecutors will spend any time trying to go after them for their involvement in this, or if the prosecution really is trying to get the big fish, and as long as they get Diddy, they're not going to worry about going after these people that Eddie Garcia has mentioned this morning. Okay. So Garcia testified that he gave $50,000 to Madrana and $20,000 to Elias. He said he bought a used car in cash with the $30,000 he kept for himself. He said he did not deposit any of the money into a bank account or report it on his taxes. Garcia said about a week or two later, he noticed the incident report and attached security footage were no longer on the security computer. He said he did not report it to anyone because that would draw more attention to the situation. Okay, let's go further. We don't need that. Security guard Eddie Garcia testified he reached out to Diddy through Instagram around 2017 or 2018, asking Combs if he had any work for him when Combs was in Los Angeles. And he said Combs never responded. Eddie Garcia testified that Diddy reached out to him a few weeks after he provided Combs a hotel security video showing the hip-hop mogul physically assaulting Cassie Ventura. Quote, he said, "Happy Easter, Eddie, my angel. God is good. God put you in my way for a reason," and then proceeded to ask if anyone has asked about the incident or the video. Y'all see, this is why I say Diddy is in the position that he's in right now and experiencing and going through what he's going through right now based off of all of his actions. Because even this call with Eddie Garcia, he dare say that on Easter, he dare say on Easter, and that means something to if you are of the Christian faith, and I guess Diddy is something. But he says that God is good. God put you in my way, my angel Eddie, my angel, because God knew I was gonna need you to be in the mix here, because I was going to have to prevent that videotape of getting out of me assaulting Cassie. And God knew you were going to be the one to make sure that I was covered and no harm would come to me. God did it. Diddy is feeling that right now in the moment when he was talking to Eddie shortly after he got the video back. What he thought was the only copy. So, yeah, and again, he did not learn. He did not learn after this incident. He did not learn. He continued behavior. There's other women, the Gina person. So he escaped. He thought he escaped something that could ruin his career, and it did not change his behavior. If anything, it might have made him worse, because he's like, yeah, I got money. I am a powerful person. I can pay my way out of anything. I do not have to experience consequences. Okay. So they say, at that point, after he, on Easter Sunday was talking to Eddie Garcia, I feel like checking in just to make sure we're good. Nobody talking about anything over there about what happened. Nobody's talking about the incident. That's what I feel Diddy was really calling him about. Garcia told Combs he had not heard anything. He ended the call with just saying, if I ever needed anything, just let him know. And clearly that wasn't true either, because when Garcia reached out to him, almost a year or two later, they said, hey, you got any work I could do? He said Diddy never returned his call. Okay. Eddie Garcia testified that after the video resurfaced in the media in 2024, He spoke to his colleagues, Israel Flores and Henry Elias. Garcia was then contacted by law enforcement in June 2024 about the incident, but Garcia testified he wasn't honest about his own involvement in the situation at the time. Garcia deleted his messages with Flores and Elias about the situation after that meeting with the investigators. Garcia said he was later appointed his own counsel and met with the government later that year when he disclosed that Combs had paid him for the video. He said he was truthful in that meeting and all subsequent meetings with prosecutors. Now, this makes me want to go back to Flores's testimony that came at the beginning of this trial to just revisit what did he say? What did he say? Because whereas he did not take any money from Diddy, he was not a part of the money that Eddie Garcia got that was split between it was split amongst Eddie, his boss, and another guy who was on duty that night with security, not Flores. But when Garcia says when he saw the incident appear in the media in 2024, he spoke to his colleagues Israel Flores and Henry Elias. I wonder what was that conversation about. Just hopefully Flores did not perjure himself in any way, but I don't know. Okay, so anyway, I read the part where Garcia said he was later appointed his own counsel and met with the government later that year. When he disclosed that Combs had paid him for the video, he said he was truthful in that meeting and all his subsequent meetings with prosecutors. So the defense attorney begins the cross-examination of Eddie Garcia. Defense attorney Brian Steele is still doing the work for the defense. He asked Eddie Garcia if he got a good feeling about Sean Diddy Combs, who acted professionally in the transaction, even though Garcia testified that he was looking out his rearview mirror to see if Combs was following him after the meeting. Garcia agreed. Okay. So this is a weird question for Brian Steele. And this to me is, of course, this man is the expert at trying to make lemonade out of these lemons he got on this trial. Because, okay, we just heard that Diddy bribed the hotel security to give him what he thought was the only copy of the video of him assaulting Cassie. He just did that. He asked for their IDs. He took picture of Eddie Garcia, his boss, and another guy's ID, part of the security team. Okay, made him sign a non-disclosure agreement. Although Eddie said he didn't read it, the non-disclosure agreement said a couple of things. One, you won't talk. You'll keep everything confidential. But hey, if you do talk, you're going to have to pay us $1 million. And this is a person who's making $10.50 an hour. Not to mention, how do you legally document that you're going to make me pay you $1 million if I speak about this illegal activity we're doing? See how that does not work. That just does not work. Okay. The non-disclosure agreement also included a non-disparagement clause. Let's see. Steele then reviewed sections of the non-disclosure agreement that Garcia said he did not read when he signed it. Steele honed in on the section of the non-disclosure agreement that included provisions for when Garcia could discuss the confidential information without breaching the agreement. A provision allowed for Garcia to disclose the information to law enforcement or other government bodies if necessary without breaching the agreement, but required Garcia to notify Combs' company. Now, so what all that tells me is that this is standard language in a non-disclosure agreement, and Steele is trying to leverage this language to say, my client did not have you sign something that prevented you from going to the police or some other government body. You could do that without breaching the agreement. You just needed to let the corporation, let the Combs company know that that's what you were doing. That's not going to buy Brian Steele or Diddy anything with the jury on that. I mean, okay, but it's still, again, I even feel that's weird. Why would I have to notify you that, I'm about to go to the police about this illegal activity that we did, and if I breached it, come on. The NDA is not for illegal activity. It's not for illegal activity. The non-disclosure agreement also included a non-disparagement clause. Still completed the cross-examination, and the prosecutor is requesting Garcia on redirect examination. Okay, Eddie Garcia is off the stand, so that testimony with the redirect must not have been much of nothing because CNN does not reference anything about it. So at this point, the jury took a short break to catch up on the late. Okay, and then up next is the head of finance, former head of finance, Derek Ferguson. I did a little research on Derek Ferguson last night, and yes, he was once the head of finance for the Combs Enterprises. And at one point, it appeared that Diddy also appointed him as chief operating officer. So he's also a Harvard graduate, and in an interview with might have been someone affiliated with Harvard, he talked about his work at Bad Boy, and he also talked about, and I think at this time of this interview he was still working there. He said that he facilitated or led like Bible studies or something at Bad Boy Records. I thought that was interesting. So considering all that, this head of finance, former COO for Combs Enterprises, Harvard graduate, Bible study leader. Let's see what his testimony might have to offer. One thing we can say for sure, though, before we move on to Ferguson's testimony, is that I think the prosecution has shown bribery. Okay. They have shown kidnapping. I'm trying to say what they're showing evidence to. They have shown arson, potentially, depending on what the jury's thinking. What else did they show? They showed domestic violence, but that's not a part of the charges, so I'm not going to include it. They definitely showed extortion. Okay. They have shown forced labor. All right. So before we get into Ferguson testimony, let's just quickly recap what all of that means. Right. I heard a legal expert say when listening to the testimony that's taken place so far, definitely the bribery part of the testimony was over. She said what the jury has not seen at this point is what is the criminal enterprise. And I think that is what a lot of people are still struggling with when they say they don't see Rico, right? I think people who are saying that is because they are still not seeing what is the criminal enterprise. I would say that the prosecution has presented evidence to show forced labor. You've had more than one assistant to Diddy talk about a bad work environment, excessive work hours, not being allowed to go home. Sometimes when you would go home, he would send security for you. So yeah, forced labor. Okay. Bribery. Eddie Garcia testified to that today. I think that was pretty good testimony to say right there. Yes, Diddy definitely bribed the hotel security guards in order to get the videotape and to buy their silence. So yes, kidnapping. If the jury believes Capricorn Clark, I believe Capricorn Clark as far as her saying that Diddy kidnapped her. So you could check that box there. Yes, they've proven that. Arson. Uh some people on the jury might say, they feel like the prosecutors did prove that Diddy committed arson. I know there's conversation out there to say that, well, they never showed that Diddy directly had anything to do with setting Kid Cudi's car on fire. Nevertheless, the testimony was allowed in. It is before the jury. It is one of the charges. And there might be some people on the jury who say, considering everything that happened, especially with Diddy breaking into Kid Cudi's home and locking his dog up in the bathroom, they might say, yep, I believe he definitely did that arson thing, even if he hired somebody to do it. Extortion. This jury believed Cassie Mama. You know, this jury has no issue believing Cassie's mama, who got on stand and said that she had to take out a home equity loan on her house for $20,000 that Diddy was demanding. Somebody in his business told her how to wire the money to him. And if she did not wire that money to him, he was saying that he would release X tapes with her daughter on it and also might hurt her daughter. So she got on the stand and testified to that, and I don't believe there's any question that the jury believed that. So let's say the jury believes all of this. They believe the extortion, they believe the arson, they believe the kidnapping, they believe the bribery, they believe there was forced labor. That's already 5 things right now. And that some of these, if not all of these, are on the list of predicate acts. You only need to prove 2 to find somebody guilty of RICO. Here still lies the problem that a lot of people are having, including a legal expert who talked about this earlier today. Yes, we can say that the prosecutor, the government, has proven that Diddy is guilty of these crimes. Please show us how these crimes are connected to a criminal enterprise. What is the criminal enterprise? And that is the question that a lot of people feel has yet to be answered. So we're about to see if this testimony from Derek Ferguson, former head of finance, former COO for Bad Boys, is going to shed any light on this question, because as of right now, a lot of people are saying we don't see it. All right. So let me go on up to where we begin with Derek Ferguson. All right, so I'm gonna try to take you all back now to the thread that we have on X to see if it can give us more of the verbatims. So let me just switch over to that screen. Just 1 second. Where's the screen we're looking for? I believe this is. Nope. All right. And where I will be reading from on Inner City Press should be on your screen now. All right. So we are picking up where they picked up earlier before going on break with the testimony of Derek Ferguson. All right. All rise. Okay. These are just some of the conversations between. Hold on. Let me just see who this is. Okay. So, all right. Let's start right here. Okay, prosecutor. With that, the government calls Derek Ferguson. How do you know Mr. Combs? Ferguson said, I worked for him from 1988 to 2017. What was your role? CFO, so Chief Financial Officer. Prosecutor, how were your bonuses determined? Company results and my performance. Prosecutor, were you responsible for managing Mr. Combs' personal finances? Ferguson said, yes, at times during my tenure. Prosecutor, who was your supervisor? Ferguson, sometimes to Mr. Combs himself. Prosecutor, how often did you interact with Mr. Combs? Ferguson said a couple of times a week. Later, he became more of a chairman. Prosecutor said, how did you communicate with him? Ferguson said, back then, pagers. Who is this? Uncle Paulie photo shown to Ferguson. Ferguson said, Paul. Prosecutor said, and these individuals, Roger Bonds and D-Rock, they were security. Prosecutor, was Mr. Combs the sole owner? Yes, 100% of Bad Boy Productions and Films. Okay. Prosecutor, what was his role? Ferguson said creative and marketing. Did some ventures have partners? Ferguson said Bad Boy Records with Arista, also with Warner, Sean John Clothing had a partner. Prosecutor said, what were the profits? Ferguson said very profitable. Prosecutor said, how was Mr. Combs paid? Ferguson said, sometimes salary, sometimes distributions from the companies. Prosecutor, what is a distribution? Ferguson said, if solely owned or passed through like S Corp, the owner determines to draw down. Prosecutor, did each have a bank account? Ferguson said, yes. Could you sign on the account? Ferguson said, yes. Which banks did the Combs companies use? Citibank, HSBC, and Signature Bank. What is this one? Ferguson said, Janice Combs Music. Okay. That is Diddy's mama. And if you know from some of the times that Mace has gone off on Diddy, one of the things he talked about is that the way Diddy was protecting a lot of stuff and harboring a lot of stuff that did not belong to him. Mace accused him of putting stuff in his mother's name, including some things that belonged to Biggie. So what is this one? And Ferguson said it's Janice Combs Music Inc. It furnished his name and likeness. Prosecutor, Mr. Ferguson, are these initials in section 4? He said, yes, it was September 29th, 2009. Is this also a business checking account? Ferguson said, yes. And this one with Diageo about Ciroc. How was this account funded? Ferguson said, inflows. And Diageo is the big company that Diddy had the agreement with to work on. Diddy was the face of Ciroc. But from what I understand, Diageo actually owned Ciroc. So anyway, and there are some people with the conspiracy theories that really feel that it was Diddy's fallout with Diageo when he started accusing them publicly of discrimination and other things. That's where his house of cards came down because he was no longer maybe being provided the cover he was enjoying as a rich and powerful person, and that maybe the insinuation is that maybe Diageo kind of helped his house of cards tumble down. So who knows if there's any truth to it in those circles? Who knows, right? Prosecutor said, what about credit cards? Ferguson said, primarily American Express, expense reimbursements. Did Mr. Combs have an Amex? He said, yes. Did he use it for personal as well as professional? He said, yes. And the companies paid? He said, yes. How was outgoing cash handled? We had a petty cash amount and cash advances. For example, for those traveling who didn't have American Express cards. When Mr. Combs was paid in cash, how did it work? We'd match it if a contract. Okay. Were you aware of Mr. Combs' security staff carrying cash for him? Ferguson said, I was not aware of that. Prosecutor, and when you were responsible for his personal finances, what did you do? A budget for the year. Properties? And Ferguson said inflows and outflows. Prosecutor asked, what properties did he own? The Hamptons, New York, Miami, they were held in LLCs for anonymity and liability reduction and tax benefits. Did you oversee the other personal accounts for Mr. Combs? Ferguson said, yes. Okay. Were you aware of him supporting other people? Ferguson said, yes, from his personal earnings. Prosecutor, Your Honor, this might be a good place for us to take a break. Judge asked how much more with this witness. Prosecutor said about 20 minutes. We think in Jane starting late tomorrow. We expect 2 days for her cross-examination. Judge said only Mr. Ferguson today. Prosecutor said yes. And if Mr. Agnafilo's cross goes long, may we stay late? He said, okay. All right, so they go on the break. And let's hope this feed continues because we've been having some challenges with this feed today. Okay, good. They're back in. All right. They're back before the jury is in. Combs' last used lawyer, Jason Zibula, is full of hearsay. So they're arguing about some hearsay stuff. This is stuff between the attorneys and the judge. So let's go straight to when the judge says, bring the witness back in. Where are we? Okay, here we go. Prosecutor, Mr. Ferguson, before the break, we were discussing these bank records. What is a 207 Anderson LLC? Ferguson said Mr. Combs' property in Alpine, New Jersey. Prosecutor, what is the mailing address? 1710 B Way. Prosecutor, what are these internal transfers? 190,000, 575,000, and 100,000 in December 2011. Prosecutor, who decided whether to initiate an internal transfer? Ferguson said, usually the comptroller. Prosecutor, do you remember these? Ferguson said, no. And this outward transfer, to whom did it go? Cassie Ventura. Prosecutor said, for how much? Ferguson said, $20,000. And this one coming in, Ferguson Roger Ventura said, for $20,000. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. So this outward transfer, to whom did it go? He said to Cassie. He said, for how much? He said $20,000. And this one coming in from Roderick Ventura for $20,000. Oh, so that is proof. That is just proof that the $20,000 was sent, and the $20,000 was sent back to Cassie's family. That's the whole extortion piece. Wow. Okay. Okay. So extra proof. I need to make a note of that. Extra proof on the extortion. Okay. Proof by Mr. Ferguson. Even just identifying that those transactions went out, who they went to and from. Okay. The prosecutor said, when did you leave the CFO position? Ferguson said, end of 2012. Then chief growth officer, the Revolt Media and TV. Prosecutor, after you left, how often did you communicate with Mr. Combs? Prosecutor said, he texted me in 2024. I don't remember the day. Prosecutor, let me show you. Ferguson, I see. Prosecutor said nothing further. Okay. Then the defense is asked if they would have any questions for cross, and of course they do. So defense attorney says, you grew up in the Bronx. Where did you go to high school? He said, Stuyvesant. He said, where did you go to business school? He said, Harvard, MBA, 1990. He said, then BMG Music Group. Ferguson said, yes, they own over 100 music labels worldwide. They own Arista, 50% of Bad Boy Records at a certain period of time. Defense attorney, could Mr. Combs then do whatever he wanted? Ferguson said, no, there were Arista agreements. Ferguson, coming from the Bronx, I thought he needed more companies that would hire people from the community. I saw that in Sean Combs. I thought it was a chance to have an impact. Okay, let's go back and read that. Ferguson says, coming from the Bronx, I thought he needed more companies that would hire people from the community. I saw that in Sean Combs. I thought it was a chance to have an impact. Defense attorney, what was the onboarding? Interview, met some at Arista. Ferguson, I met Benny Medina and some others. Okay. Benny Medina, I know I've heard that name before, and I'm not sure if he's just an executive at Arista, but I know I've heard that name before. Let's see. Defense attorney. So you didn't just see Mr. Combs and get the job. Ferguson said no. How did Bad Boy change from 1999 to 2012? Ferguson said it added other businesses. Records were getting competitive. Okay. Defense attorney. Do you remember Notorious LLC? Ferguson said it was a magazine called Notorious. Defense attorney, Bad Boy Records was established in 1993. Ferguson said, I think it was 1996. Did Bad Boy have connections to Interscope? Yes, UMG and Rhino. Okay. Defense attorney, who is Andre Harrell? He founded Uptown Records, went to Motown, then back to Bad Boy. What was the Spirits business called? Ferguson said eventually it was called Combs Wines and Spirits. I was involved in the start with Diageo. Combs then, the defense attorney said, what issues arose with Diageo? The prosecution objects. The defense said, were there differences about how to market? Ferguson said there are always differences of opinion. We had conversations. How do we drive it more? Was the brand everywhere like competitors? Okay, then there's a sidebar. Are we current? We appear to be current, y'all. We did that in quick order after losing the first part of this live. So while we're waiting on an update to that thread, let me hop over to CNN and I will share that screen with y'all just so we can see what CNN might have captured about what we just read. Because when they do their recap, they tend to add a little more context sometimes. So hold on while we go to that screen. And you all should see it on your screen right now. Okay, here we go. All right, so prosecutors have called Derek Ferguson, the former head of finance. Ferguson said he is testifying in compliance with his subpoena. He talked about working for Diddy from 1998 until 2017. He said his responsibilities included budgets, accounting, and record keeping, as well as sometimes doing things with Combs' personal finances. Let's see what we have here. Okay, we do not need this article. When Derek Ferguson, former head of finance department for Combs Enterprises, first started at the company, he said he interacted with Diddy a lot. Okay, so yes, we understand he interacted with Diddy pretty regularly, he said in the beginning, but then as they hired more professional staff, he didn't interact with him as frequent. Derek Ferguson, the former head of finance, said he and Diddy were the signatories on business bank accounts during his tenure with Combs' companies. Prosecutor is reviewing bank records for various business bank accounts for Combs entities. Derek Ferguson, the former chief financial officer, said most senior executives at Bad Boy had American Express corporate cards, including Combs. He said that Ferguson testified that Combs would charge business and personal expenses on his card from time to time. He said members of his team would determine which businesses or entity a charge pertained to and then use that business's account to pay that charge. Let's see. Derek Ferguson testified that cash payments were an industry norm 20 years ago. He said it was not uncommon, especially during his early years working for Combs, that performers would be paid in cash and a performance manager would at times bring cash to the finance department to be processed. Okay. Derek Ferguson, let's see, said he was not aware that Combs' security carried cash for him, saying it was not something I paid any attention to. During his tenure, he said there were periods when third parties were engaged to handle Combs' personal finances, and other times it was internally managed. Ferguson said the finance department managed the finances for Combs' properties that he owned in Miami, the Hamptons, and New York City. Ferguson also confirmed he knew Combs would provide financial support to family and friends through his personal salaries and distributions. Ferguson said he'd sit down with Combs at least once a year to review his personal finances. Okay, so far it's like, okay, much ado about nothing in my opinion. Okay. The prosecutor asked, okay, that's some court maintenance stuff. Okay, all court maintenance stuff there. Let's see. Okay, that's when they went on lunch break. Judge is back on the bench. Let's see what updates we have from there. Okay. Okay, the lawyers have identified a media outlet and another person who has been attending the trial that revealed that. Oh, okay, this is separate and apart from Ferguson. The lawyers have identified a media outlet and another person who has been attending the trial that revealed the true identity of Mia in their coverage. Mia is a pseudonym used by one of Sean Diddy Combs' former assistants when she took the stand earlier in his trial and testified about the abuse she had endured while working for him. The prosecutor has asked judge to bar those people from the trial and asked the judge to compel the media outlet to remove a social media post discussing Mia's identity. The judge said he'd consider a request if they file it in writing. He also suggested the lawyers propose an instruction regarding Jane, another one of Combs's accusers, who will begin testifying under a pseudonym on Wednesday. Look, for content creators, and honey, I'm a baby content creator, so I'm nowhere near what these other people are doing. I'm just starting to do this. But the risk you take of trying to get clicks and views, not only are you going to, be barred from this procedure, and if you've done anything special travel arrangements to be there, that's bad, but also you better hope there's nothing else that can happen to you for doing that. But the bigger story here to me is the court. For the court and the government to think that you can actually walk somebody into that courtroom, have them sit up there on the stand where everybody in the courtroom can see who they are, and the people who are in the overflow courtroom can also see who they are, because according to the judge's ruling earlier, if the courtroom was big enough, those people would be in the room, so therefore they had access to video. And to think that this person is going to get on the stand, testify to different events, time, places, and all of that. And to think that these internet sleuths out here, social media sleuths out here, are not going to, in quick order, identify who this person is insane if the government thinks that. So if they want witnesses to truly be anonymous, I don't know if it's against the defense or against their rights to like really have them like testify behind a screen or something where you cannot see them. I don't know if that would be helpful, but like I said, the details that these people under these pseudonyms are going to provide in their testimony, it is not going to be hard. It is not going to be hard for people to be able to identify who these people are. So I think once you step in court, once you start testifying and giving details about your involvement in certain places and spaces that you were, especially with somebody famous, your anonymity is out the window. It's out the window. That's just, I don't even understand how anybody can see it differently. All right, so let's go back up here. Let's see. Jury sees details from Combs's bank statements from 2011. The jury saw December 2011 bank statement from Diddy bank account for his Alpine, New Jersey home. On December 14th, the records show the account transferred $20,000 to Cassie. On December 23rd, the records show an incoming wire transfer from Broderick Ventura, Cassie Ventura's father, for $20,000. On December 27, Combs's account returned the $20,000 to Ventura's father's account. Interesting. Interesting. And I know all of this is connected to the extortion that Cassie's mom testified about. But let's see, on December 14th, the records show the account transferred $20,000 to Cassandra Ventura. Okay. It's something about the dates surrounding this movie. So, I'm sorry, this money. So on December 14th, the records show the account. Let me back up. The jury saw a December 2011 bank statement from Diddy's bank account. Okay. On December 14th, the records show the account transferred $20,000 to Cassie Ventura. On December 23rd, the records show an incoming wire transfer from Cassie's father for $20,000. Okay, I get it now. And then on December 27th, they show, okay, because the earlier testimony said that when Diddy was extorting her family for the money, he told them that he needed to recoup the money that he had invested in her since she's around here, messing around with Kid Cudi, right? So on December 14th, the records show the account transferred $20,000 to Cassie Ventura. To me, that would have been maybe the money he sent initially for Cassie to work on whatever she was working on with Kid Cudi. Then December 23rd, after all the extortion, they send the money to Diddy. Then 5 days later, or 4 days later, Diddy sends the money back to Cassie's father's account. Okay. But that's just more evidence of what Cassie's mother testified to earlier. That's just more evidence that all of that is true. And they have it proved, they have the proof with bank account transactions. So you check that box on extortion. Okay. The defense begins the cross exam of Combs' former head of finance. The prosecutor has finished her direct examination, and let's see what the defense asks. Derek Ferguson said he served as CFO until the end of 2012, then worked as chief growth officer for a few years before becoming chief operating officer of Revolt Media and TV. He said he did not speak with Diddy often after leaving his employment in November 2017, except for some odds and ends related to his departure and occasionally reaching out on holidays. Combs last reached out to Ferguson on September 16th, 2024. Ferguson said Combs texted him to say hello and asked him to give him a call. He said Combs sent another text shortly after saying he was in New York and wanted to see if Ferguson had time to get together because he wanted to talk and get some advice. Ferguson said he was on a flight to Charlotte when he received the text, so he wasn't able to meet. He said he did not respond to the message. I think by that time you also knew what was going down with Diddy. Um, Here's how former security officer could be a very important. Okay, we don't need that part. Okay. Ferguson said he initially was interested in working for Bad Boy Records because he thought the company could, quote, have a lot of impact. Quote, coming from the Bronx, I felt like we needed more companies that really would hire from the communities I grew up in. That would give people opportunities, he testified. Okay, the defense attorney has asked Derek Ferguson general questions about Sean's businesses. He asked former chief financial officer about Combs' long-term relationships with Diageo for liquor products. Combs mainly oversaw the creative direction, and Diageo, one of the world's biggest drinks makers, provided funding, Ferguson said. When asked, Ferguson said there were ongoing tensions between Combs and Diageo over the marketing and distribution of the products because they felt the distribution was concentrated in urban areas. And this would have been probably during that tension that ultimately led up to Diddy saying publicly that he felt Diageo was racist and some other things. Now, again, like I said earlier, there are people who believe that this helped his Diddy's house of cards fall the way they did, because I don't know if the presumption is, you started messing with the wrong people. These people are highly powerful. They have a whole lot of money, and some of that protection and cover that you Diddy, that is, benefited from being a powerful and rich person. You're not powerful. You're not as powerful and as rich as these people. And so the conspiracy theory often indicates that the people connected with this liquor company might have assisted. They might have nudged one of those cards a little bit to kind of help his house crumble. So don't know if it's true or not, but anything is possible. At the end of the day, if they nudged his house of cards to help it crash down, what they didn't do was do the things that Diddy actually did. So they may have been a part of exposing him because of what he was trying to do to them publicly. But at the end of the day, you gave them something to expose. If any of that, if any of what I just said is even true. Okay. So let's see if we have any update at this point. All right. So let's see. Defense attorney said, were you concerned that Diageo was marketing Ciroc primarily in certain areas to certain people? Ferguson said, my opinion. The defense said, on your personal knowledge. The distribution was highly concentrated. The question was why. Ferguson, Diageo was marketing it more in urban areas than more broadly. Defense attorney, okay, what about Revolt? It was owned by Highbridge Capital Management, which was purchased by JP Morgan Chase. Ferguson said, I think so. Defense attorney said Highbridge had 2 seats. Ferguson said, yes, 2 of 5 seats on Revolt. Uh, Defense attorney said, what were you at Revolt? He said, chief operating officer. What did that entail? He said, Ferguson said, finance and production. Defense attorney, and Sean Combs wasn't in the management, right? Ferguson said he was not. Defense attorney, let's look at, he shows him an exhibit about Combs Enterprises. Let's put up the redacted version. So there's a chart of executive shown. Here you have James Cruz and the HR officer after Vashta Wilson and Andre Harrell and yourself. Ferguson said, this is the team. Okay. Where are they going with this? Defense attorney said, what is digital? Ferguson said, he said, your pause says enough. Personal versus business expenses. What's your accounting background? He said, I was a CPA for a time. Defense attorney, you never saw Mr. Combs sitting reviewing his American Express bill? The Ferguson says no. Okay, interesting. Interesting. So while we wait on the reply, it would seem to me that the defense attorney is trying to say here that Diddy did not, you know, really do much, it seems, with his finances. Other people were, doing the things they were hired to do. I think it is very interesting how much they focused on the tension between Diddy and the liquor company, Diageo. I thought that was very interesting and curious to see where they might be trying to go with that. Because out of this testimony from Ferguson so far, the biggest thing to me is just him identifying, or the prosecutor even showing to him, the $20,000 back and forth, which was connected to the extortion with Cassie. But I I haven't seen anything else that was just like, okay, that's big news. So let's see if we have any other update at this point. Not yet. And I am going to go ahead and just flip the screen to the X feed that we're following right now to see what we might get as we continue on, because this trial, let's see, I think they're going till 4 o'clock. So what are we talking? Maybe an hour, 15 minutes. So that's still pretty enough time. I don't know. I know they said they weren't going to start with Jane today, but I don't know. This it's hard to believe that they're going to end the day with this particular witness, because it feels like they're going to wrap this up sooner than later. All right. So hold on a second. Let me just share my screen here. All right. All right. So we are waiting to see if we get an update. Let me go back out and just check. Okay, we're still waiting on an update, but and we left with the defense attorney asking, what is digital? Ferguson said, defense attorney said, your pause says enough. Personal versus business expenses. What's your accounting background? Ferguson said, I was a CPA for a time. Defense attorney, you never saw Mr. Combs sitting reviewing his American Express bill? And Mr. Ferguson said, no. So someone in the comments said, casting doubt on any assertion that Combs knowingly commingled business and personal funds. Yes, that is exactly what they're doing. So I guess and I thought, I thought the testimony from Garcia was so good. And I don't know why. I should know by now, with this being day 15 of this trial, to never ever think that, okay, the prosecution, the government is about to do their big one and really come through with the things to show like why is this a criminal enterprise and all that. Because the questions that they're asking the head of finance, I feel like it's much ado about nothing. So now the defense is asking the questions of the head of finance, and like that person in the comments said, they are trying to show that really Diddy, was not using funds inappropriately or doing anything menacing with funds. Like they said, casting doubt on any assertion that Combs knowingly commingled business and personal funds. Right. Someone else commented, trying to show that Puff wasn't micromanaging every financial detail and other professionals handled operations. There was a formal executive structure. It wasn't just Puffy making decisions in a vacuum. Who else were responsible for expense tracking? Okay, that is exactly what they are doing. Um, and it quite frankly was smart of Diddy. Well, he needed it for the size of his business because this is a real business. It's not a mom and pop shop. But it's good he did have those entities in place because I think that buys him some deniability because of that distance. Okay, let's see. So we left off with you never saw Mr. Combs sitting reviewing his Amex bill. And Ferguson said no. Defense attorney, when there was a partnership with another company, they would look at the books as well, right? Ferguson said yes. Many high profile people have personal assistants. Yes, he said they do. Defense attorney, security was part of the business. Ferguson said yes. Okay. Okay. Somebody commented, books are cooked at times in the absence of external auditors. Someone else said, okay. I'm like, I don't, I'm just like, what are we getting to? Someone said, another day, another government tactic thwarted. I can say that word. All right. Uh, let's see if we have any other update at this point. Yeah, we don't have anything yet. So we'll keep it here until we see. And we also do not have any other update on CNN at the moment. So again, this Ferguson's testimony, it feels like a disappointment to me. It really does. It really feels like a disappointment to me. I think because after the Garcia, I felt like, oh, okay, now we're finally getting ready to start talking about like bribery and money and where did the money come from, like which accounts did he take the money from. I thought perhaps Ferguson was able or was going to be able to at least identify from whatever the prosecutors might show that yes, this is $100,000. It came from whatever business account to Diddy, and maybe they were going to say, okay, and this is the same $100,000 taken from a business account that was used to pay a bribe. I thought maybe they were getting ready to go down that path, but that is not what they're doing right now. Maybe they're going to get there before this line of questioning is over, but right now, this Ferguson testimony is feeling like womp 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 to me. Let's see if we have any other update. No, we are still waiting. Let me see if we have any other comments down here about anything. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Yeah. So yeah, I am not I guess I shouldn't say I'm bored, but I would just say that I was expecting more from the head of finance and CLO. I was expecting, okay, well, this man must be getting ready to come in and tell us how these accounts were being used. And maybe the prosecution was going to ask questions to show that these accounts, these quote unquote business accounts, were being used in a way to support a criminal enterprise. But y'all, we are still not there. We are still not there. So let's see if we have any other update. No, we're still waiting. We are still waiting. Let me just scroll down to make sure. Yeah, yeah, we're still waiting. Oh boy. Okay, finally. Well, no, this is oh boy, I was starting to get up excited because I thought we had an update, but no, no, not yet. Um, so again, I think today's trial or today's witnesses, the first part of today was very, very productive. I think with Eddie Garcia. Eddie Garcia, I wonder if he still lives in New York because I'm almost concerned for his safety. Uh, he said a lot. He said a lot. I think he honored the immunity agreement they gave him, and I think he said a lot. He said a lot about his boss. He said a lot about the other guy who was on shift that night who also took a cut of the money. You know, he said a lot about how he was nervous and how Diddy was so happy to have the drive and yeah, he said a lot. He said a lot. And I think if I'm not mistaken, when Flores took a video, and he talked about this a little bit, he claimed he took a video of the footage of what happened to share with his wife. Like, can you believe this is what happened? Could you believe this is Diddy? Look at what he was doing. From what I'm gathering, it is whatever that video was that was sent to CNN. And it has been said that CNN is saying that they no longer have the original videotape because it was destroyed. So I don't know. So they are supposed to be, they being the prosecution, is supposed to be calling a video forensic expert to the stand. So maybe that will happen today and maybe that expert will kind of get into it. But yeah, for now, I don't know. I just don't know. Let's see if we have any other update. All right, so at least we have an update. Let's see. The defense attorney said many are asked. Many profile people have personal assistants. Yes, and Ferguson said they do. Defense attorney, security was part of the business. Ferguson said yes. Defense attorney, security's job was to be in close proximity with Mr. Combs so that no one would do something dangerous to him, right? Ferguson said, right. Defense attorney, let's talk about cash. What was the cash receipt form? When it is used? Ferguson said, for example, touring. Okay. So we'll see where this is going, y'all. Because now it's the defense asking the questions, not the prosecution. So I don't know if on redirect, the prosecution will ask questions in a way where we'll be like, oh, okay, so that's what you were trying to do. Because right now, it still feels to me like much ado about nothing. It just feels like that. So still waiting. Still waiting. All right, let me check something here for a minute. I need to make sure that I am can be heard on my channel. So hold on, let me just make sure that the volume is coming through. That the volume can be heard on my channel. So hold on. Okay, yeah, we're doing good. Okay, cool. Yes, because I started this live earlier today and I had a few people on this live with me earlier today and then things shut down and I had to restart the live. I had to restart the live. And so that's where I am now. So anybody who's coming along after I had to restart this live, I appreciate it so much. So please like the live, leave a comment, say hi. Let me just hear from you. We are waiting right now for an update to the testimony that we last received from inside the courthouse. But yeah, I was so upset that I had to restart this live. Okay, do we have an update? We have a sidebar. I need them to stop. This is an inconvenience. This is an inconvenience. I am really starting to think about doing a live of this trial after testimony is over for the day, because that way all the testimony will be there. We can toggle back and forth between this thread that's coming from Inner City Press and CNN, and we won't have like these big gaps in time where we have to wait for sidebars to be done or breaks to be over or waiting for the reporter who's in the keeping this thread alive to tell us what's happening. Things just move a little bit more quickly. But me having said that, let me just be very clear. I am very grateful for Inner City Press. They are being used by a lot of content creators since there is no audio or visual in this case for the public, since it is a federal case. So we're grateful for it. It's just, sometimes it gets painful because we can't see the people, we can't move like in real time. So we're doing the best we can here with the people we can tap into. So still no update on the CNN side. They have not updated their post now, and it's been 26 minutes since they last updated their post. Let me just check and make sure I'm right on that. Yeah, that's it. Uh let's see if this is something. Defense attorney asked Derek Ferguson general questions about Diddy. Okay, yeah, he asked the former financial officer about the relationship with Diageo for liquor products. Combs mainly oversaw the creative direction, and Diageo, one of the world's biggest drink makers, provided funding. Yet, I've already read what that testimony was about, and Ferguson talked about the tension between this liquor company and Diddy. There is the thought out there by many, or I should say by some, that Diddy's house of cards came tumbling down when he started calling himself complaining publicly about this company, saying they were racist and saying other things publicly, and he said he was going to sue them and all that. And there's this thought that after he did that, his house of cards came tumbling down. Well, let's say if that is true, what of it? What of it? What if it is true? What if, Diddy, you're rich and famous and powerful in your own right, but compared to these people who own this liquor company, you are nothing to them with the kind of money that these people have. And let's say if these people who are upset that the audacity of you to be out here in these public streets telling these people that they're racist after all the money they've paid you to be the face of Ciroc, to make people in your community believe that you were the owner of Ciroc. Probably a lot of people still even believe that. But they were paying you for marketing. They were paying you for marketing. You were doing marketing and other creative type things to push the brand. Diddy never owned Ciroc. He never ever owned Ciroc. I know when it first came out that it was being presented to us as if this was Diddy's alcohol. That's how it was presented. So at the end of the day, it turns out it wasn't. He was the face. He was being paid for marketing and other creative type things. And I'm sure they were paying him a hefty sum, because I've heard reported more than once that it is his relationship with them that made him a billionaire. So they were paying him, and they were paying him well to push the brand. From what his chief financial officer testified to here this afternoon, he said there was tension between Diddy in this liquor company because Diddy felt like they were not backing the alcohol to really be promoted in other areas. They were hyper focused on pushing Ciroc in urban areas, and Diddy didn't like that. He was trying to say it shouldn't be limited to just pushing this in urban areas. Now, I think when Diddy finally came out and said to the people, to the masses, these people racist, y'all. I take that with a grain of salt. First of all, Diddy, you're a horrible human being. Does that mean you have no care for your culture or your people? Not necessarily. But I'm just saying you're a horrible human being. And my first thought when you're fighting with this liquor company and they're paying you all this money to make you a billionaire, my first thought is not that you were doing that for your people. My thought is that you were doing that for you to become richer because you would want to become richer. So I'm sorry. Even if he has some underlying like, no, I'm really doing this for the community because then I'm sorry. I'm not open to receive that message. Mm-mm. So there is this thought out there that it was that tension with the liquor company that really made his house of cards come tumbling down. And I will say again, even if that is true, that this liquor company did something to really expose Diddy to land him where he is right now, Diddy still did the things that were there to be exposed. So cry me a river on that one. And do I put it beyond this liquor company to have done something like that? I don't put nothing past. I don't put anything past any of these rich, wealthy, powerful people. I don't think they think like us. I don't think they do not play by the same rules. As rich as they are, they all want to be richer, and so anything's possible. Anything is possible. All right. So let's just go back and see. Uh, we don't have an update at this point. They're still having a sidebar. And another thing that's possible too, when we're talking about um, the rich and famous not moving like us, thinking like us, operating like us, the pardon that is highly likely for Diddy. Um, that's something too. We everyday people, we get caught up in something, not even something as significant as this trial or these charges that are against Diddy. You are not getting a pardon. Okay. You're not getting a pardon. You're gonna have to ride that thing out, and you might be as innocent as you can be. You are not getting a pardon. You are not getting a pardon from your state governor if it's a state crime, and you are not getting a pardon from the president of the United States, especially this one. Because if you got a pardon from this particular president of the United States, your story is gonna somehow have had made the media. It's got to be something in it for him. And if it's something in it for him, then maybe. But if you're some unknown person caught up in something, why he's not interested in that. He's not interested in that. He'll pardon a rapper though. What he pardoned Kodak Black. Uh he, he pardoned, oh gosh, what was the other rapper? Oh, the name escapes me right now. But he's pardoned more than one rapper, this president that we have now. So, and then to also see, and let me just check before I get off onto that tangent. Okay, do we have an update? Okay, yeah, we do have an update. Okay, let's go back up to where we left off. All right, so the defense attorney said, let's talk about cash. What was the cash receipt form? When is it used? Ferguson said, for example, touring. Okay. Then defense attorney said, did you see anyone help Sean Combs commit crimes? Ferguson said no. Defense attorney, did you see anyone make the company stronger through coercion? Ferguson said, can you explain that one? What do you mean by coercion? Defense attorney said, fair enough. All right, so this is where the defense is saying, like what the person, another legal expert said this morning. Out of all the things the prosecution has shown the jury, they have yet to show them what is the criminal enterprise. And I'm on that team. There's a lot of things that the prosecution has shown, a lot of things that I say, yeah, Diddy's gonna serve some time for that right there. He's gonna serve some time for that extortion. He's gonna serve some time for kidnapping. He's gonna serve some time perhaps for this bribery thing, forced labor, arson. For me, I don't know. I don't think they really proved that, but who knows what the jury's thinking. He's gonna serve some time for those things, those charges specifically. But if you tell me that in order for me to say he's guilty of those charges, I have to say that he's guilty of RICO. If I were on the jury and if I was trying to just follow the rules and not let my personal feelings dictate what I think, and I'm just speaking if I were literally on the jury, I would still be asking, what is the criminal enterprise? What is it? Yes, and if I were a juror, I would say he is guilty of these things. I feel comfortable saying he's guilty of these things right here. Forced labor, bribery, kidnapping, arson, and extortion. If I were a juror, I would feel comfortable saying he's guilty of those things. If you ask me to say, okay, so that means he's guilty of RICO, I would have to say flag on the play. I don't care what you show to me about no predicate acts and all of that. Those 5 things that are also connected to RICO, they are very much connected to the furtherance of a criminal enterprise. So I need this government, this prosecution team to show me, in addition to him being guilty of these particular individual crimes, what is the criminal enterprise that benefited from those crimes? And the government has not done that yet. They have not done that yet. So let's see how the defense attorney in this questioning, and they may not be back yet, so let me just check and see if they are. Okay. Said, can you explain that one? What do you mean by coercion? Defense attorney said, fair enough. Defense attorney said, through sexual abuse or trafficking. Through sexual abuse or trafficking. Ferguson said, no. Defense attorney, you were there 19 years. How hard was it? Ferguson said, building from scratch, long hours. Defense attorney, did you send Mr. Combs a text in November 2017? I guess he said, I don't know. Defense attorney said, I'll show you. Okay, so far, we have the head of finance for Combs Enterprises, Harvard graduate. I'm just saying, Harvard graduate, head of finance, who has yet to offer up any testimony where we could say, now the government is cooking. We do see how all of this foolishness that Sean Diddy Combs was up to, burning down his own legacy. We do see that all of that foolishness was indeed a part of a criminal enterprise. So far, we have not gotten that testimony out of the person on the stand right now, Derek Ferguson, who was the former head of finance and also at some point in time COO. So let's see. And maybe we can, maybe there's something that's going to come out. But again, the defense is asking him questions right now. The prosecutor will have a chance to redirect. So we'll see what they say when they come back for redirect. While we're waiting, I'm going to hop over to CNN for us and see if there are any updates there that kind of help this conversation be a little bit more understandable from a context perspective. Let's see. Defense attorney asked Ferguson, the former chief financial officer for Sean Diddy Combs' record label, to confirm that personal assistants were common in the industry. Ferguson agreed, saying their titles may have varied, but Combs and other executives at his companies had assistants. paid for by the company. Ferguson also confirmed that Combs' security personnel were paid through the company for his personal safety. Derek Ferguson said that company taxes were always done correctly. He said, quote, "You will never let there be financial impropriety on your watch in that company. Am I right?" That's what the defense attorney asked Derek Ferguson. He said, quote, "I would do everything I could to not let that happen." Okay. uh yeah, the transaction from Cassie's father to Combs points to possible illegal conduct, legal expert. Well, yeah, we know that, and that is one thing that came out of the Ferguson testimony with the prosecutors. They just showed him some transactions from around the $20,000 that Cassie's family had to take the loan out on their home to pay Diddy that extortion. They were able to show those transactions in the financial records. I thought that was good. That was a good point for the prosecution, just to kind of confirm what Cassie's mom had already said. But I honestly feel even if they didn't show that, the jury, after Cassie's mom testified, they were going to check the box on extortion. Derek Ferguson, head of finance, testified that he never witnessed anyone help Combs commit crimes, nor did he witness acts of violence. Did you see anyone help Sean Combs commit crimes? Defense attorney asked Ferguson. Ferguson said no. Did you see anyone commit acts of violence? Ferguson said no. Did you see anyone make the company stronger through threats of violence? Ferguson said no. Point to the defense. Point to the defense. Point to the defense. Did you see anyone make the company stronger through threats of violence? Ferguson said no. That's big. That's big as far as them being able to find Diddy guilty of RICO. That's big. That's big. Now, the prosecutors still have to redirect, so we'll see if they can undo that testimony, but that is big. They are asking Derek Ferguson, who was the prior head of finance and also the COO, did you see anyone help Sean Combs commit crimes? He said no. Did you see anyone commit acts of violence? He said no. And here's the big one. Did you see anyone make the company stronger through threats of violence? Ferguson said no. So just like not just the people observing this trial, but also legal experts are saying, as late as today, what this jury has not seen yet and what the prosecutor has to show is what is the criminal enterprise. We can check all these boxes and agree that we believe Diddy committed these crimes, and there's a list of them at this point. And I'm not even including the domestic violence, so that's not even a part of this conversation. We don't even have to say he's not charged for that and go down that whole rabbit hole. I'm talking about the charges that he has: forced labor, bribery, kidnapping, arson, extortion. You could likely check the box on that if you're a juror and say, "Yep, I believe he's guilty of all of that." For me, if I was a juror, I'd have a question mark on the arson, but all the other ones, I would check the box. If you told me that checking these boxes also means that I find him guilty of a RICO, I would have to throw a flag on the play. Because even the 5 tenets that are associated with defining a RICO and what it means from an enterprise level, the prosecutors at this point, they have not told us what is the criminal enterprise. How did all of this criminal activity that I personally believe did it? Okay. How did that criminal activity further the criminal enterprise's growth, development, all of that? Where's that? Because you need that for the RICO. Where is it? And now you have the chief financial officer, former chief financial officer, respond to the question, did you see anyone make the company stronger through threats of violence? And Ferguson said no. No. So let me see if we have an update here. And if not, then I might just take you all over to the CNN page with me to see where we are. Okay. So we left off with defense attorney saying basically explaining coercion. Did you see anything through sexual abuse or trafficking? And Ferguson said no. You were there 19 years. How hard work was it? Ferguson said, building from scratch, long hours. Defense attorney, did you send Mr. Combs a text in November 17? Ferguson didn't remember. Defense attorney showed it to him. Defense attorney said, did you tell Mr. Combs you learned so much from him? Ferguson said, yes, he pushed the entire team. He had passion. Defense attorney, you're a religious man. Prosecutor objects, the judge sustains, and you are on the board of his charter school. And Ferguson said, yes. Okay, let me tell you a few things here. Ferguson, Ferguson was running Bible studies at Bad Boy Records. I came across this last night when I was just trying to research who was Derek Ferguson, and I was reading an interview he did when he was, with Harvard. He's a Harvard graduate, so he was interviewing with someone from Harvard while he was at Bad Boy, and he was talking about the Bible studies he ran at Bad Boy. Talked a little bit about his faith and all that. So he would be, I'm sure he considers himself, of course, a Christian man, right? Um, I think also this is just another person talking about how much they learned from Diddy, his passion, etc. So this is just a defense just trying to humanize Diddy for the jurors to like just see him other than all the other stuff that we can't unsee, right? So interesting. So the prosecutor said you're aboard on his charter school. Ferguson said yes. Okay, I don't know how the prosecutor is mixing up their questions with the defense, but anyway, the defense attorney said the school tries to work with at-risk children. The prosecutor objects. The judge sustains and said, "Let's move on." Defense attorney, do you think highly of Mr. Combs? Ooh, Ferguson said, "I don't know how to respond to that." Oh, oh, I understand the conflict though. If Ferguson is on the up and up, I understand the conflict. You work for this man for years. He's one of those top executives in the C-suite. He thinks highly of Diddy from a business perspective, the passion. He talked a little bit about the things they were trying to do in the community, especially like in the Bronx and that kind of thing. But he's also seen this tape. He's probably also heard a lot of the testimony and the things that he's being accused of. And he is, quote unquote, a Christian man. So, do you think highly of Mr. Combs? It's probably complicated for him to respond to that. So, I understand when he says, I don't know how to respond to that. I get it. So, the judge asked the prosecutor if they would like to redirect, and they do. Prosecutor, was Revolt Films entirely separate from Revolt TV? Ferguson says yes. Who was the head of Revolt Films? Ferguson said, I don't know. Did you ever stay in a hotel room with Mr. Combs? Prosecutor, like, y'all know y'all showing out. Y'all trying to be funny. Ferguson said no. So I'm taking the prosecutor here to basically say, well, that's good. You saying all that you're saying. Now, keep in mind, Ferguson is a witness for the prosecution, okay, by the way. So he's already had, however many meetings, because apparently all these witnesses are having all of these meetings with the prosecution before the trial. So it's funny to me because it feels like the prosecution is like, well, yeah, you saying all that you saying. You ain't never seen none of this and that and all that, but you hadn't been in the bedroom, so don't be up here acting like. So they're just trying to say, y'all don't listen to this because he wasn't in there. He ain't noticing all this stuff going on with these freak offs. So all our other stuff still stands. Calm down, prosecutor. Okay. So prosecutor says on this org chart, who is the chairman? Ferguson says Sean Combs. Prosecutor, and you see Christina Caron here. Yes, KK, chief of staff, Diddy's former chief of staff. Mm-hmm. Ferguson said yes. Do you see the name Mia? Ferguson said development and acquisitions. And the prosecutor says nothing further. Okay, I don't know what kind of mic drop moment that was supposed to be, but let's keep going. Judge Recross, the defense is up now. They said you didn't go to his home or hotel because that's his personal life, right? Okay, so now they both being messy. The prosecution and the defense, they're both being messy now. They're like, "Oh, okay." While the prosecutor trying to be funny over there, talking about you weren't in the hotel, but right, so you up here sounding like this is a good, upstanding businessman or whatever. But were you in any of those hotel rooms? The prosecutor wanted us to know. And Ferguson said no. Defense attorney then comes back, well, you wouldn't have been there, right? Because that's his personal life. To which the prosecution objects. The judge sustains the objection, and the defense attorney says, no, nothing further. The jurors, you may go or rise. So that may be the end. Let me check though quickly and see what CNN had to say about what we just went over, because that was a good little laugh for me. I was like, okay, because I was starting to like, y'all, there's much to do about nothing. Come on with it. Okay. All right, so let me also I'll share the screen with you all so you all can also see where I am on the CNN page. But that was an interesting way. And what time is it? Yeah, I'm sure they're done for the day. But that was an interesting way to end today's update. I thought that was just so funny. All right, let me just get to that page. If you guys want to read along, you can, but if not, just sit back and enjoy. Please like the live, comment, feel free to say hi. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would appreciate the support. Okay, so here we have defense attorney says asks Ferguson if he saw anyone enhance Combs' reputation through acts of prostitution. Defense attorney Mark, the former CFO, asked the CFO, look, why can I not talk? Asked the former CFO for Sean Diddy Combs' record label, quote, did you see anyone enhance Mr. Combs' reputation of the business through acts of prostitution? Ferguson said no. Defense attorney asked, did you see anyone enhance Mr. Combs' reputation or the reputation of the business through sex trafficking or forced labor? The judge sustained an objection from the government to that question. Okay. The former CFO testifies about Combs' work ethic. Former CFO Derek Ferguson testified that working with Diddy was hard work since they were building businesses from scratch. He recalled working long hours with lots of talented people. Quote, we all felt that there was a mission to be great, to represent ourselves in a certain way. He said Combs' employees were a, quote, very close-knit group, especially in the beginning. The defense attorney asked Ferguson what he learned from Combs. Quote, I did learn a lot from him. He had a great business mind, and I think he put his mind to something and set a really high, aggressive goal and was not afraid of that goal. And I think that's something you can learn. And I think that's something you can learn from that. He just worked constantly, Ferguson said. His passion for what he did was really high, so his work ethic and the number of hours that he put in was something that really pushed the entire team. Okay, so this witness for the prosecution is complimentary of Diddy. Ferguson has ended his testimony and the judge has dismissed. Okay. Let's see what else we have up here from CNN. Former finance head asked how he feels about Combs now. Here's how he responded. Defense attorney asked Ferguson how he felt about Sean Diddy Combs today. Ferguson paused for several seconds before shaking his head. I don't know how to respond to that, he eventually said. To me, that feels so genuine and authentic. The defense attorney then asked if Ferguson has a positive view of Combs based on his own direct interactions with Combs. The defense withdrew the question as Ferguson hesitated to answer and prosecutors objected. Prosecutor is now questioning Ferguson on redirect examination. That seems a little bit out of order from the post before. Okay, so let me just check back really quickly to make sure we have not missed anything. But that does seem like the jury is being dismissed. Okay, and the jury has been dismissed. Good for the jury. They are now talking about Jane, and I don't have to go into that. That is the judge and the lawyers working out, I guess, logistics for tomorrow. Jane is a pseudonym. Jane is another person who is testifying under a false name, and she is another person who is expecting anonymity. There was a lot going on today about Mia. Supposedly, there's some YouTuber who did a video, I guess, using her real name and other things. That person, I don't know who that person is at the moment. Some people were saying it was Tasha K. From what I understand, it was not. From what I understand, it's a male content creator. Again, I don't know who it is at the moment, but has been barred from attending any of the hearing moving forward. Don't know if there will be any other consequences for that person. Then there was a lot of discussion around, the anonymity and, just trying to, I guess, remind people, look, y'all, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, am I not? What is going on? Because as soon as a person walks in that courtroom, up there on that witness stand, your anonymity is over. Now, granted, if you are in the courtroom, whether you're a news reporter or a content creator or whatever, of course you should obey the rules. I mean, that kind of, to me, that kind of goes without saying, because who knows if your consequences could be bigger than just you being barred from just coming to court. But I just feel like you should obey whatever they ask you to do if you're there, right? Um, and people do a lot of things for clicks and views. But having said all that, as soon as you walk into this courtroom in this high profile case and you get on the witness stand in a courtroom full of people, there's also video in the overflow courtroom. And in addition to these people literally seeing you, you're about to give testimony, likely similar to Mia, where you're going to talk about dates, uh, events, different people who may have been at those events when you're describing what happened to you. Because from what I understand, this Jane person is going to be another person who is going to talk about having been essayed or abused in some other way by Diddy. Once you get on that stand with all those details, your anonymity is over. So I don't understand why the government, if they're not going to put this person behind a black screen or something, that seeing them would be part of it. But again, when you start talking about the places you've been, who was there, what happened, what year it was, look, the internet is undefeated. Okay. And like I've said before, and I'm going to say it again, if the community at large, if you go over to Walmart and show you know what right now, and let's say you going off, you racist, you homophobic, you whatever ick that people gonna get up in arms about. You just it doesn't take a good 5 to 10 minutes before the people on the internet have identified you by name, identified your employer, has the number out there posted to your employer for them to call and send them the video of you showing your you know what. And then we get the update that, the company has released a statement and you're no longer working there. Saying all that to say, how in the hell would the government think that in this high profile federal crime, federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, that you can walk these people up on the witness stand and say, hey, everybody, Mia is not really Mia. Jane is not really Jane. And we're going to leave it at that. We're going to leave it at that. And nobody is to discuss anything about who they really are. This is 2025. Honey, that genie is out the bottle. You can't get that genie back in the bottle. So I am at a loss. I am at a loss for people trying to oh, how could that have happened? What do you mean? How could it not have happened? How could it not have happened? Okay, so let's see. The exhibits admitted in the evidence during Jane's testimony will not be shown on the video feeds for the public. Jane, one of Diddy Combs' accusers who is using a pseudonym, is expected to take the stand tomorrow. Judge has granted the request from the prosecutor, who said it would help to avoid risk of Jane's identity being revealed. It's not going to help. Comey said there's going to be a significant amount of exhibits, including text message threads shown to the jury during her testimony. Yeah, it's not going to help. It's not going to help. Jane's testimony will not be shown on the video feeds for the public. Well, I was not under the impression that there's any video feeds for the public. As I understood it, uh, okay, I think I know what they're saying. Maybe they're telling us will not be shown on video feeds. I don't know if they mean that this then will only be for the jury. I'm not sure what they're saying. Maybe they're saying if you're in the courtroom and if you're in the overflow courtroom, you will no longer get video, but you're still, if you're physically in the courtroom, would you not still see Jane? What? All right, we'll see. I guarantee you right now. I guarantee you right now that when Jane takes the stand, and I feel bad for Jane because if Jane is a victim and she's trying to remain anonymous and she's really not wanting to be here anyway, if she's another one of those type witnesses and she doesn't want to be identified, I feel bad for her. Because Jane, after you hit that witness stand, even with these so-called precautions they're supposedly taking, the people are going to know who you are. The people are going to know who you are. The government needs to revisit how they want to handle these situations. All right. So before I check out of here, let me just check one more time to make sure there is nothing more out here. I think that's it. I am glad I got on and did this live today because after yesterday, I was about to call it. I was about to say, well, I did like the first 14 days. I think it's time for me to get off the train. But today was a good day to not give up. Today was a good day, especially from the Garcia testimony, which was really, really good. I'm going to do a separate, shorter video on the Garcia testimony. I do also think what this former head of finance said at the end about these allegations not ever doing anything to further the enterprise. I do think that's important. I do think that is important. So we're going to see how tomorrow goes and see exactly what happens tomorrow when Jane takes a stand. They're also supposed to be calling a video forensic expert. We'll see what that's about. These experts have left a lot to be desired, quite frankly, during this trial. Again, much ado about nothing from the ones who've been on the stand so far. So yeah, so I will see you all tomorrow again for the live. It will be day 16. That means we're a little over the halfway mark of this trial. A little over the halfway mark. So please like the live, leave a comment. If you're not a subscriber already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I really, really, really appreciate your support. And until next time, bye, y'all.